Now, in order to be effective, paradoxically, this interest can't be just a technique. If you're showing interest in order to get them to open up to you, sure, that's going to have some kind of value. But it's really the authenticity behind it that it was going to make that other person feel amazing when you do decide to shine that spotlight on them. So it's worth asking, what are some reasons that you might be genuinely interested in other people? I know one of the questions that I have from well-meaning individuals is, I just sometimes find people boring. I find myself disconnected. I don't want to talk. It's not that I hate them. It's just that I don't care. I'm not interested. And to you, I want to talk about some of the things that you might not be realizing yet. And one is that you do not know what you do not know about people. You stand to learn something. I think back to a time when we were just starting Charisma on Command. We were in New York City and we gave a speech to a group of about 50 to 100 people. And at the end of it, we offered a seminar where we were going to have 5 people come up and we were going to do an in-person program with them. And we got flooded. So we sold those 5 spots right away. And there was this one guy who couldn't get in the first 5 spots, but he's like, I just really want to do it. He really was earnest about it. I appreciated his enthusiasm, and we opened up a 6th spot for him to participate. And then we're like, okay, no more. We can't handle this many people. So we started this, and he, during the seminar, was just someone that was a fine person, a nice guy, not extremely extroverted, not really showing us a ton about him. And at this point in my life, I really wasn't the type of person who had developed a deep fascination with other individuals. I was interested in people at large, but I tended to think that I could pinpoint very quickly who was interesting and who wasn't. I was wrong, and thank God that Ben or he asked us to just go get a meal at Chipotle afterwards. Because even though I didn't hate this guy, I wasn't interested in creating a relationship or learning more. But when we sat down at Chipotle, I learned what a fascinating guy he was. He had just sold his company to Google X. And Google X was the experimental part of Google, where he sold his company. He had worked there for 6 months, and rather than waiting for the millions of dollars that he had earned to vest and to take all of that money, he took about half of it, left half of it on the table, because he realized that he didn't like what he was doing at Google X. He moved to New York City and was 100% immersed in just developing himself, becoming a better human being, which is why he was at the seminar that we gave. And in addition to that, he was quirky, he was funny, he was interesting to hang out with. He just happened to be introverted. And because I, at that point in my life, hadn't developed an interest in people and inquiring into what made him tick, I might have completely missed him as a friend. He eventually moved with us to Brazil and lived with us for many, many months and is still one of my good friends. So that is just to illustrate that you do not know what you don't know about people. You might think that you can look at someone and tell, or they're quiet, they've got nothing to say, that you have nothing to learn from them. You have a tremendous, tremendous amount to learn from them, which brings me to my second point. It has often been the breakdowns of the people that I was least interested in doing, the people that I felt most different from. PewDiePie, for instance, when people were recommending that I do a breakdown of PewDiePie. Donald Trump. Logan Paul. There were these guys that I was just like, you know what? I don't really have a ton in common with them. Even Oprah Winfrey was one recently that that was a talk show host from when I was very little. Why would I be interested? And when I dove into these people who seemed so different from me, that's when I learned the most. When I took the guys that I look up to, admire, sure, I learned a ton. But in really getting into the individuals and learning what makes them think and what kind of mindsets they have, they by definition, because they are so different, had the most differences and therefore the most to teach me. So not only do you stand to learn a ton, but in learning from these people, you can begin to predict the behavior of a wider range of people. And that's one of the reasons that I was able to come up with that Trump prediction early on in the 2016 race that he would beat Hillary Clinton, because I was looking and studying different kinds of people other than the ones that were immediately interesting to me. And the last bit, which is really connected with me, is that once you start to become engaged with other people, what makes them tick? Why do they do what they do? How are they feeling? And what made them feel that way? That's when you can really start to help people. Because I've tended to find that if you don't understand someone's worldview, it's very difficult to offer advice that will help them, advice that sticks with their frame. So if you want to be someone who is capable not just of giving advice, but of helping on a broad scale, you genuinely need to be interested in people. You need to realize that you do not know everything and that there is fascinating learnings and a tremendous amount of good that you can do from expressing that genuine interest. And the good news is that when you are genuinely interested, a lot of the sub-communication that you need to do in terms of paying attention and the nodding of your head and the all that kind of stuff, the active listening, that is one of the most natural, charismatic things that people do. When they're listening, they tend to communicate it. I do have one friend who will listen to you and stare at you blankly, so don't completely lose track of congruence here, but this isn't something that you really need to worry about the minutia of, am I staring at them correctly? It tends to be much easier for people to be congruent when listening as opposed to when speaking, which is why we focus more on presentation when speaking. But if you can tap into genuine curiosity, genuine fascination of other people, this step is going to come much, much easier for you. The last barrier that I hear when people are talking about what makes them not be really interested or not ask questions with other people is that they don't know how to get past small talk. Sure, they're interested in people, but they don't want to talk about the weather or the sports team or where they were born. And I can completely relate to that. Very quickly, that stuff becomes not interesting. It's just window dressing on what makes that person tick. So, similar to the respect portion of your amazing first impression, we want to drive down in our questions of these people when we're showing interest, not to the logistics of their life, but to their values. What makes them do the things they do? What do they think is important? Why have they made the decision to be in one place or in one job as opposed to another? And questions that get you there tend to start with why. Why did you do that? Or how did that make you feel? Or what was going through your head at that point in time? When you are driving down to the emotions that drive them, to the values that make them do the things they do, that is where conversation gets fascinating. That's how you get out of small talk. So most people, for instance, will go, where are you from? I'm from here. Where are you from? I'm from here. Now already, yesterday, we worked on expanding your part of that answer so that there's more conversational threads that can get you into values. But if on the other hand you ask them first or you don't have a chance to do yours, you can still ask them, okay, what made you leave that town? And then they mention a job and you say, how do you like it? What do you love about it? Would you change it? What's the big future plan? When you get into these core drives, these core values, that is where conversation opens up. When you stay stuck on the logistics, like, oh, I don't even know what you might say. What time do you get into work? Did you see the sports team play whatever game? Have you enjoyed the weather? All of that stuff can be very, very light and frivolous. It's not going to be fun, it's not going to be funny, and it's definitely not going to make you connect on a deeper level, because that is what we are essentially talking about here. People connect over values, shared and compared values. They do not connect as much over shared and compared, facts about themselves.